that being said, I would like to call to order the meeting of the Lewisburg Area Board of School Directors. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you to everybody who's joining us this evening, both here in the room and also virtually via Zoom. Again, I think I say this every meeting, but it's just, of course, an unusual time, so it's good to have people here, and glad that everybody's joining us tonight. Just a couple of announcements to get started. The board did meet in executive session this evening for 30 minutes prior to our meeting to discuss a safety matter. We do have board members here on stage. The rest of the board is meeting and joining us via Zoom, so we do have all members present. You just don't see all of us in front of you, but we are all here in the meeting. With the board's permission, I would entertain a motion to add an agenda item for the Lewisburg Area High School Marching Band Health and Safety Plan. Is there a motion to add the agenda item?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Zimmerman, seconded by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? All in favor of adding the item, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. So we will add that and come back to that item as the last item under our board action. At this point, I would open the floor to any citizens' comments to the board on an agenda item. So this is solely at this time, solely for any citizen who would have a comment to the board on the items that you see on the agenda. Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on an agenda item at this time? Ma'am, can you please state your name and address and which agenda item you'll be discussing?
My address also? Yes, my name is Rebecca Hand. I live at 156 Villa Vista Avenue.
The microphone may not be on. Pull the switch towards you on top.
It should slide toward you. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Hand, and the agenda item, I'm looking for it, was the safety plan for the return to school. And what I would like answered in that regard is addressing, how do you plan on addressing educating students with IEPs or 504 plans who cannot learn via online instruction, cannot wear masks, cannot social distance based on need, and or parents still need to work?
So I'm actually going to just pause that. So the plan to reopen is actually under the superintendent's report, so she will give that here in just a second. So before we take questions on that, I want to give Dr. Polinchak a chance to present the plan that might answer some of those questions. So before we get too far into a lot of the questions about reopening, not that I'm trying to ignore your questions, but anything under the other board action items that we'll be voting on. At this point, I just want to give anybody a chance to comment on those items before we head into the plan for reopening. So give us just a second, we'll come back to that, I promise. But any other comments to the board on an agenda item that is listed for the voting section for tonight? John, anything via Zoom? All right, so hearing none, we'll move on from that section. Again, as I said, we will give Dr. Polinchak, with the board's permission, we're going to switch up the item, the agenda a little bit. I am going to move the superintendent's report as well as the citizens' comments to the board on non-agenda I'm going to move those to the meeting right now. Again, if the board's, with the board's permission, if we're good with that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Palanchak for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. In my transition to the Lewisburg Area School District, our main focus has been on what the 2020-21 school year will be like for our students, faculty, staff, and parents. Much needed guidance has come from the Department of Education over the past 2 weeks. We are devoting our efforts towards a plan to reopen schools for all students pre-K through 12 with the most current guidance and recommendations for health and safety. We know that the best way to deliver instruction is when students are in school with their teachers. Our tentative plans will be an early dismissal 1 day a week for additional cleaning and sanitation. Our teachers and staff have many questions about what will be required of them and required of the students, and we are working to provide everyone with direction that both adheres to the health and safety guidelines and takes into account that we are working with children and teenagers. We are inviting a stakeholder group of individuals from the local health agencies and representatives from our staff and community to provide feedback on the tentative plan before it is forwarded to the school board for its consideration. We are required to submit a health and safety plan to the school board for approval, and this plan is primarily about the precautions we are taking to mitigate the risk and spread of this virus. We recognize that every family needs to make a decision for their children with respect to their personal circumstances. Parents will be able to request virtual schooling for their students K through 12 through LASD eSchool. The curriculum is aligned to the standards and it is provided by a third party. Our teachers would not be delivering the virtual instruction, but this is the most seamless option for our students should the conditions change with this pandemic. The students remain LASD students, which means they can still participate in many of the activities that are important to them. More information could be found on the homepage of the website, where parents can contact their principals or Mrs. Moser for more details. For students who are receiving special education services or have 504 service plans, we are still required to provide a free and appropriate education, and any accommodations, modifications, specially designed instruction that would be required in either of these circumstances, given the guidance that we have for the health precautions, as well as just their education, would be handled through their individual IEP meetings. It is important to state that the tentative plan we have now may change at any time. Therefore, we are planning for another scenario where schools, if they are ordered closed, we would be ready to continue the education for those students. No school district was prepared for an event like this, and we did the best that we could to keep the students learning and connected last spring. Should we find ourselves in the same situation, we've had the time to plan and prepare. We are also planning for scenarios where opening schools has to adhere to a certain percentage of students on campus. Nothing replaces full-time in-person learning. That is our goal, but we will be flexible and responsive to the ever-changing conditions. I would also like to share that the Green Dragon Foundation's Lifting Up Lewisburg campaign running through the month of July will help individual classroom teachers with the supplies that they may need. We appreciate their support for our teachers and our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Palanchak. So we just heard through the superintendent's report some of the initial plans. Obviously, as Dr. Palanchak just said, those plans still continue to change. We continue to adapt as new guidelines come out. So at this point, I would like to open up the floor to any citizens' comments to the board on a non-agenda item. I would ask, just for essence of the time, there are a lot of people joining via Zoom, that we do limit those comments to 3 minutes. Anybody who's joining via Zoom can certainly make a comment. At this point, we are just here as an all-ears board. We're looking to hear from the community and hear from parents. We won't necessarily be addressing questions at this point. We are fielding questions. There's an opportunity, and will exist on the website as well as via Zoom through the portal to submit a question to the district, and we will certainly continue to try to answer those as best we can and take those into consideration via throughout the process of releasing our plan. So at this point, I would entertain any citizen who would like to address the board. At this point, again, just asking that you keep the comments to 3 minutes or less. And again, we're all ears, so if anybody would like to address the board at this point.
Do you need my name again? Rebecca Hand at 156 Villa Vista. Is it Dr. Polinchuk? Is it doctor? I just want to make sure I address you appropriately. Thank you, Dr. Polinchuk. I was very excited to hear that you were signing on as the new superintendent of schools in June, and I read your email, and what I received in that email was that you have a real heart for the students and a real concern for the students. And I have a couple of students who are IEP students. One of them, I've had a great, difficult time addressing her needs. I requested an aid, and I was told by Pamela Kramer, we don't usually give an aid to a student who does not have a physical disability. I thought that was kind of unusual and pretty discriminatory, and I was a little concerned. When she was initially evaluated at Kelly Elementary School, the school psychologist at that time, Wendy Baker, I felt a lot of bias from, because my daughter was given a diagnosis of developmental delay, and for no other reason other than it did not match what Miss Baker's achievement testing results were. She opted to ignore it, though the developmental delay diagnosis came from a renowned pediatric neuropsychiatrist, Dr. Richard Dowell. The school district faculty at Lintown had been asked several times by my daughter's therapist and myself to provide her with some supports on the playground because she was socially awkward and at risk of social isolation, and they ignored those results or those requests, and as a result her symptoms got worse, and over COVID-19 she received the official diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. When she saw her therapist for the first time last week, her therapist discerned that her time at home and outside of the school made her situation and her symptoms a lot better. This should not be happening. We need support for students, and instead of listening, parents are being treated like helicopter parents. Instead of being concerned about the children, they're concerned about scores. My daughter did not meet her 5th grade IEP goals, but instead they continued to push for her to go into the 6th grade with 6th grade level scores higher than the 5th grade goals that she didn't even come close to meeting. Next week, I have another student who is being evaluated for an IEP in the elementary Kelly school level, and she has high levels of anxiety and high intelligence. But Deb Faust, before she left, had tried to get me to get my daughter evaluated for oppositional defiance disorder instead of anxiety. How can I trust that my child's needs are going to be met by the special education department with genuine listening and a true willingness to understand the condition instead of making presumptions? I'm working on my neuropsychology degree. I'm not stupid. I don't like to be spoken to or treated as such. And when my autistic daughter says to me, I'd rather do school at home because then I don't have to look stupid, or I don't have to be a loser anymore to her peers, that's a concern. And I'd really like to work together with you to see how we can resolve this. I've pulled my daughter from the school district. No other parent, and I've had several parents come to me and say that they have had fights with the special education department as well. I would love to work together on how we can make it better for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hand. At this point, any other, ma'am? If you could just please state your name, address, and no agenda item. So just name and address, sorry.
My name is Katrina Franz. I'm at 212 St. Lawrence Street in Lewisburg, and I kind of want to piggyback upon what she was saying. When my child came into the school district, he was essentially turned away, And I felt like I had to fight and fight and fight to get things for him, even though he was seen by a lot of doctors as well. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth, but I personally would like to see the special education program revamped, some parents on board with meetings on what their children need, and less income-based guidelines for those services. My child as well does not strive at home. He has a plethora of diagnoses from autism, very little on the spectrum, to defiance disorder, as well as he's missing a portion of his brain. So the cognitive skills aren't necessarily there. So I would like us to maybe delve a little further into the special education program rather than putting everybody into a box. I have requested a meeting with Pamela Kramer, and we're going to meet on August 4th to discuss some of the concerns as a special need parent. My concern next year going forward with the Zoom meeting is that those children that are already struggling or left behind are going to have to play catch up even more. We're not teachers. I'm not a teacher. I didn't get my degree in teaching, but my child deserves the same education, even if that means the educators themselves have to go a little bit above and beyond. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to the board at this point from anybody here in the room or anybody via Zoom?
We have a few comments from the folks. Let's see here. One panelist said, unfortunately, it was not clear. Is it full-time instruction for students with 1 day a week early dismissal, but you can request e-school instruction if you want your child to learn virtually?
Sorry, John.
Yeah,
We're having
Dr. Polinchak, I guess.
We're having trouble hearing up on stage.
Oh, okay.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the speakers are pointed the other way. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Someone was asking, it's not clear, is it full-time instruction for students with 1 day a week early dismissal, or can you request e-school instruction if you want your child to learn virtually?
It would be full day instruction, 5 days a week with an early dismissal 1 day, a consistent day. And parents could request e-school and they would be able to get e-school in lieu of that every day.
Gotcha. Another question, how will the current political climate impact curriculum, if at all?
If you could repeat the question again.
Sure. How will the current political climate impact curriculum, if at all?
If the question is meant to discuss what's been happening in terms of the social justice movement and protests, that's definitely something that our teachers are very sensitive to, and will make space in the classrooms for discussion. And also, I'm quite sure that we will be getting guidance regarding any curriculum changes from the Department of Education. If the question's in reference to what's currently happening in terms of masking and any of the other health and safety precautions that are going on, we are beholden to follow the orders of the governor.
Okay. Will students get counseling, as this definitely has posed a mental health situation for many students, especially those who struggle financially and emotionally?
John, right now, before we get too far into all the questions and the answers, again, as we continue to plan, we definitely want to hear these questions. We're not trying to stifle, conversation or questions and answers. As we continue to plan, these are the types of questions that we want to hear, as we continue to plan. So again, I would encourage, all of the audience here and on Zoom to continue to give questions to us. as we continue to work to provide more information via e-alerts, posting stuff on our website. Those are where we're looking to really get into a lot of the question and answers. Right now we're just looking to, rather than kind of play question and answer tonight with Dr. Kolenchuk, we're looking to just kind of hear comments, hear concerns. As a board, we want to be listening tonight. So again, we definitely want to hear those questions. We're looking to capture all of them and really get a sense of what the concerns are, and then kind of move forward from there. So again, I'm still open to hearing those concerns. John, I appreciate you reading them.
Yep.
We're not trying to be rude to not answer questions, but we just want to continue to receive that feedback. We don't have all the answers tonight. I don't think anybody up here on stage would admit that we have, or would not admit that we don't have all the questions. Just even as recently as us walking in tonight, we were receiving some new guidance from the state. So as this continues to evolve, again, we want to be careful with how we proceed. We obviously are taking this very seriously, but some of these questions we don't really have answers for, or we're still working on at this point. So again, I definitely want to continue to get those questions. Just please know we might not have all the answers. We might need a little time to work on them to actually have a valid response to give to the community. So if that makes sense, like I said, we'll continue to receive feedback. We'll continue to have the floor open. Again, you just might not necessarily get a question to all of these, an answer to all of these questions at this time.
Yes. The rest that we're receiving are actual questions. To the folks who are listening on Zoom and the folks who are reviewing the video recording after it's done, we have a form, a Google form on our website at lasd.us. You can click a link, and there you can send your comments to the school board and the administration so that they can take them into consideration. We are receiving a lot, so it may be a while if you ask a question until we get back to you, but hopefully you can submit through our website, and we'll be happy to take a look at it then.
And also just another piece, tonight we are not voting on anything. Again, this is being brought to the community just to get a sense of where the community is. We have sent out surveys. We got a tremendous response rate, so we appreciate everybody who filled out their survey. Again, that's where we're starting from, collecting that data, collecting the responses, seeing what everybody's comfort level is, because everybody's situation is different, everybody's comfort level is different, and that's what we need to know as a district. So we do appreciate that feedback. Like I said, tonight is not necessarily, we're not voting on anything, we're not approving a plan, we're just presenting kind of where we're at right now, giving an update, and then we will continue to work on that. As Dr. Kolenchuk said, we do have a stakeholder group that will be kind of pulling people in from both in and out of the district, a lot of different resources to try to get a plan in place to actually officially vote on and move forward with. So are there any other comments, ma'am?
Jennifer Riley, 220 Lamplight Lane. It's probably an impossible question, but the next school board meeting is a week before school is set to open. Is that when the plan would be voted on, or is it possible that it perhaps might come out before then?
Great question. So the board is prepared to meet. Typically, our meetings in July, we only do meet once. That's this evening. The board is definitely prepared to call a special meeting. At that point, again, we would probably be doing, assuming that the situation is still the same, we would be meeting in person, but also via Zoom to allow the maximum number of people to be involved as possible. Again, we don't have necessarily a date set for a special meeting, but we would call a special meeting. We'd be posting it on, in the newspapers. We'd be posting it on our website, social media pages. Again, as many access points as possible to get the word out that we would be meeting to vote on a special, or I'm sorry, having a special meeting to vote on the plan. I don't have a specific date for you though. Again, unfortunately, it's a difficult position because we recognize that it's really, it's necessary for us to release plans to have parents prepare, but at the same time for the district to release things and then get new guidance from the state to then say, oh, just kidding, you made all these plans, now we have to change it. There's a very delicate balance as to holding off, but also releasing as much information as we can. So again, we definitely recognize that. And that's the purpose of tonight, is to give the community feedback. Give them an update, receive feedback, and as we continue to plan, we realize time is of the essence, but at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, this week, the state continues to release new guidelines, new criteria for what we're supposed to be doing that we do have to follow. So again, to answer your question briefly, we would probably call a special meeting. I just don't have a specific date for that special meeting.
Thank you.
Jamie Lyons, 3886 Crossroads Drive, Lewisburg. So knowing that you may not have the answers to these, but you had discussed about like an early dismissal 1 day a week, is there going to be like SAC program or after school programming available on those days for parents that are working, or is that something that's being discussed about before and after school programming for that? Or just a comment?
We'll definitely continue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we did have to, cancel the SAC program for the summer. Again, we are working toward providing as many resources that we normally provide. Again, recognizing that many families are in a predicament. Should we shift schedules? Again, we definitely recognize that, and we're working on that.
Okay. I also, just as a comment, because I'm pretty sure you would not have the answer to this right now, but as a mom of a son that has really bad asthma, that tends to act up through the winter. So a lot of the symptoms that are kind of checkmarked as things that we would stay home for are things that he routinely has all through winter. When guidance is released, something addressed towards people with chronic illnesses that also would reflect in that way would be really beneficial, because we're already kind of fearful like he's going to be being sent home every day for asthma flare-ups, or do we need to kind of plan for a different type of education for him because of that? So something directed towards that would be really beneficial, so parents kind of know going into it with the plan, because can't imagine he's the only one that has those same symptoms through the school year. And I don't know, again, if you would know this by now, but for the e-learning, would there be the ability to switch through the year to that? Like if we're seeing that, say like for me, I'm thinking of my son who may be out of school a lot. If there is something like if he's having the congestion or the cough and can't come in, would we have the ability to switch mid-year to the e-learning compared to the in-room, the live class? And that was really all my comments of questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have lots of questions. Are you guys planning on consulting other school districts when you're coming up with your plan? It seems like a lot of them are meeting recently and have some form of a tentative plan in place. Are you thinking about consulting them to try to have some form of consistency across the area, or is this going to be a Lewisburg specific?
So the 17 superintendents that are part of, their districts are part of the Central Susquehanna IU meet every week on a Zoom meeting. So we all talk with one another about our plans. It is very difficult for there to be a unified plan for all 17 school districts because the communities are different and they have different considerations, but we are all talking with one another and facing exactly the same challenges that they are facing what we're facing.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rebecca, hand again. One question, during your address, you mentioned about this IEP and 504 plan students. More specifically, during the immediate shutdown of the schools, now I understand that was like a, let's fly by the seat of our pants and come up with something, so we have something. But there are a lot of IEP and 504 plan students whose parents are not able, because we're not educated specifically in how to educate our children with those specific types of needs, or at least yet, to be able to implement any of those things at home. And it was very difficult. So what my IEP student ended up doing was 2 days a week on a Zoom call with her learning support teacher, and that was it. The original attempted communication with her homeroom teacher was really not that successful, and she seemed really more interested in kind of passing that off to the learning support teacher instead of talking me through what steps we needed to take specifically. Also, I was an essential worker traveling to Pittsburgh and Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area on any given day for several days. So that wasn't something that I was able to address. So for my question is then, for those IEP and 504 students, is there going to be someone working with the parents to be able to come up with a more specific plan for their student? Or is this just going to be a generalized, this is what we could and should do for all students? Because, I mean, they have individual education plans for a reason. They have very unique needs for who that child is. So how can we work on that? Considering, like in my situation, I have 5 children and she's not just one of, she's just one of them. Thank you.
If you don't mind, just because you have some very specific questions, I can follow up with you individually so we can discuss what some of those questions and the logistics are. If that's
Absolutely,
fine.
I would love to do that. But I would also think, because I think that's a question that's on the mind of a lot of parents too. Well,
Yes.
how are you going to help my child? I understand that you're working on a whole district full of students, but these parents are, how are you going to help my child?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Dr. Polinchuk's email is on the district website. If you just go to our website, it's easy to find her email address, or simply call into the school. We can certainly connect you, to some very specific questions. The other thing I would say is, with some of these very specific questions, again, we recognize that there are district-wide questions, but there's also very specific questions, even building level, and that we are encouraging people to reach out to your building level principals as well. Again, it is going to look very different across the district. So if you have very specific questions, the one who would know the best would be the building level principal. That building level principal is also going to come back to the administrative team and work collaboratively across the whole district to put a plan in place. But again, some of these building level questions can certainly be addressed with the building level principal or Dr. Polinchuk, Mrs. Moser. We definitely will get these questions answered, and we definitely do want this feedback. But again, as we continue to plan, we are looking to also be, kind of go to the building level principal as well. They might have some direct answers that they're very aware of. John, anybody else on Zoom at this point that would like to address the board?
Nope, just a few questions. And again, we've asked all folks on the Zoom, both live and recording, to please submit your comments and questions through our form on the web. Thank you.
We'll give another couple seconds. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Jamie, again, I have a non-COVID related question, but about, it was touched on one of the questions about like the social movements that are going on. Is there a look at reflecting on the curriculum that's already approved of how that reflects how we're teaching the kids things? Just because I do know there was some things that, for my kid being very young in 3rd grade, that I was very surprised were a part of the curriculum of some of the books and the ways that they taught kind of diversity. And so I wasn't sure if there was a look at a reflection on that, of how that could be portrayed by people that are in more vulnerable populations.
Sorry, it is hard for us to hear you up here. As far as curriculum, the board does approve the curriculum each year. The majority of those resources, what the board's approving is on, if you go to our district website, there's a tab that says school board. If you follow that, you are able to see what the board is voting on as far as curriculum and what's there. So again, if you have specific questions, we can certainly email us as far as how to get that information, where that information is found. But that is something that the board does vote on, the curriculum. We approve textbooks, we approve all of those things. Normally that happens once a year when we approve different textbooks that are being brought in. Not only at the expense of the textbooks that we have to approve, but which textbooks are being taught from. So again, I would encourage you to reach out. We can definitely direct you to some of those resources.
Okay.
I'm not a citizen, but Paula Reber, high school principal. I know that there are some questions, and I'm also trying to be a little proactive, as there are some people, I know a lot of people that weren't able to get onto the Zoom, or people that had registered and then aren't going to be able to. So I didn't know, just again, trying to save you guys some follow-up emails from tonight, if you want to talk about maybe what some of the things that how you're going to handle that capacity next time.
So we are recording the Zoom, and this will be posted on the website, I believe, and Mr. Fairchild, Facebook at the individual schools, or just the web?
We'll have it on the school district website. Yep.
Okay. And the comment section will continue to be open. There's a Google form.
Yes.
It's basically you're filling out a survey, but that will capture your name, address, contact information, and the comment that you have. We do have to collect name and address. And we're going to take a look at all of those different comments. You will receive a response from the school district, at the minimum, just saying, acknowledging that we received this, and if additional communication would be appropriate, then we would provide that to you at that time.
I think looking ahead to the July meeting, is there something of looking at a different Zoom license that gives more capacity, or live streaming? Is that, I think that was something we had.
Yes, we are working on that.
So we are trying to include as many people as possible, which is why we, again, we opened it up tonight in person, trying to be respectful of the governor's restrictions that he put into place yesterday. So we did shift slightly with what we had originally planned for this evening, which did cause some issues with the Zoom capacity. Again, we are aware of that. Obviously, we're looking to, for the next meeting, we would love for the whole district to be on Zoom to watch, ask questions, again, make comments. I do encourage people to continue, not just in this meeting tonight or the next meeting, but continue to, reach out to building level principals, fill out those questions online, continue to reach out to the board. Again, we need your feedback. We're looking for that, and we really appreciate that, because without it, we can plan for a whole district. But to some of the comments tonight, to that point, we do want to plan for every individual child or every individual student. That's something that I think we really try to pride ourselves on, is that we try really hard to focus on the individual student across the entire district, not just a district as a whole. So again, I definitely encourage continued feedback. I encourage parents and students and community members to continue to stay involved and continue that feedback. So yes, to Paula's point, we are working on the Zoom capacity and looking at including that. We want to include as many people as possible.
Board members, please hold the microphone as close as you can to your mouth. We are having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right, at this point, any other comments to the board?
My name's Jessica Abbott, 90 Mays Lane, Winfield. My son's in Kelly, and he has a hard time keeping the mask on because he's always fidgeting. Is there going to be like something, like, are they going to have to wear it all the time? Are they going to be in trouble if it comes off? Like, when will we find that out?
That's been a discussion that we've continued to have. We've continued to reach out to the local health organizations, medical facilities in the area, again, state resources. We will be following guidelines. Again, you know, it's a complex situation, and we continue to try to follow the guidelines. Again, unfortunately, the guidelines keep changing, so we keep evolving. So again, something could change tomorrow, something could have changed in the hour that we've been in here tonight. So we do continue to have those discussions. We continue to reach out to those professionals. We don't want to make that call. We let that up to the experts, and we want them to inform us as to what's the best and safest way to learn. So again, we don't necessarily have an answer right now. We're continuing to reach out to those resources and receive their input, because we are letting it up to the experts and really getting their input on it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no further comments, I would then like to move on to the board action section of the meeting. At this point, we're looking at the 2020-2021 Parent-Student Handbook. Mrs. Moser, I'll turn this over to you.
I believe you've had the handbooks for review. We are ready to put these to a point of production for distribution with the coming school year. We would ask that we move.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Blonsky.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Clark. Any discussion?
Yes, the handbooks don't yet include any information about the COVID addendum that will be included once we have all the guidance that Jordan had referred to. And so I know Mrs. Moser referred to production, but I believe we are not going to print any except those upon request, because we do anticipate changes. So while I would motion to approve, I want the caveat that we will add more information to change some of the current guidelines in the handbooks.
Aaron, to your point, we did discuss tabling it for that reason, but we can certainly add an addendum to your point, and that's something that we did discuss. I did just ask Dr. Palanchuk if there was a reason that we should proceed, and so we would proceed, but we can certainly add an addendum to that handbook with COVID once we kind of finalize some more plans.
If we think that new guidance will significantly change the handbooks, which it may due to transportation, how many days out of school from a fever, interactions, discipline, that sort of thing, then I would motion to table until we have further guidance.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Sorry, we have a motion and a second to approve them or to table them?
Sorry, to approve them with the understanding that we can add an addendum to the handbook.
I just changed my motion to table for the reasons that we just discussed. So that would need a second.
So Dr. Blonsky has made a motion to table.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Clark. Any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of tabling the item, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries to table the item. So we will not be voting on that tonight to approve. We will table that and hold that out till the next meeting, possibly even the special meeting should we have one. The next item is the Power School enrollment online registration. Dr. Fairchild.
Yes, you have before you the quote from Power School. We talked about this at the last meeting to get our online enrollment fixed, for lack of a better term. So we would ask that you approve this quote this evening so that we can rapidly implement it.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Browse.
And moved by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Paula.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Mr. Heath, Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mr. Rowe,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton, Dr. Unsinger Fazero,
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Browse,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll move on to the revised athletics, health, and safety plan. Dr. Hollingsworth.
We've revised our health and safety plan to include some of the changes that have occurred due to the masking order that we recently received. And we're also are looking to incorporate in this plan the return for the preseason music program.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Blonsky, seconded by Ms. Stanton. Any discussion?
I think after the PDE guidance that came out today, there's a couple of lines that need to be changed to include the explicit 6 feet of distance, especially even though we have the limit on the outdoor gatherings. And there's one other one in here. I'm sorry, I just had it. Capacity. So as long as we're following both of those, yeah.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call vote on this, please, Paula.
Mr. Heath? Yes. Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton? Yes. Dr. Unsinger Fazero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll move into the board action under new business. The first item is the substitute head custodian pay. Dr. Fairchild?
Yes, we would ask that you approve the motion to add this category to encourage the folks who served as substitute head custodians and to prepare for it in the future should we need to use it. So we would ask that you approve this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Clark and seconded by, I believe, Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Paula.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton? Yes. Dr. Unsinger Fazero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath? Motion carried.
All right, the next item is to approve the 2020 debt series Plan Con Part K. Dr. Fairchild?
Yes, we would ask that you approve this paperwork so that we can transition our Plan Con money from the 2015 series that was refinanced to the 2020 series.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Blonsky, seconded by Ms. Stanton. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Paula.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton? Yes. Dr. Unsinger Fazero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath? Yes. Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, the next item is the closed Fund 39, the high school construction bank account. Dr. Fairchild?
Yes, we would ask that you authorize us to close that bank account and move the remainder of the funds over to our capital projects because we finally paid our last bill on this building. The high school construction fund is no longer required.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Blonsky, seconded by Mrs. Browse. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Paula.
Ms. Stanton? Dr. Unsicker Fisero?
Yes, with an exclamation point.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Prowse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath? Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, the next item, the superintendent contract approval. Dr. Polinchak, this is her first evening with us tonight, officially as the superintendent. Back in February, we did vote to elect her as the superintendent. Tonight, we are finalizing the official contract, even though we did approve her as electing her as the superintendent. Tonight is the official contract approval. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent contract as presented?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Stanton, sorry. Second by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Paula.
Dr. Unsicker Fisero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Prowse?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, the next item, resolution for the PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Education e-signature. Dr. Fairchild?
I don't remember putting that on, but is that to, I think that's to authorize Dr. Polinchak to electronically sign grant applications and other important things through the PDE website.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski, seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? All right, I believe we can do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the United Way Pay Survey Data MOU. Dr. Polinchak?
So this is, Ms. Moser, I might invite you to help me with this as you were handling this prior to my joining the district. This is a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, about sharing the pay survey data with the United Way. United Way would be an organization that would help to provide services, should services be needed in the community based on the data that we receive the results from that survey. And any results are actually, if they are available to the public, they're available on a countywide basis, not by individual school districts.
So this MOU releases that confidential information that, as Dr. Polinchak said, is available by county, but not by specific school district. This would release that to help provide services and help direct some of the funding to better provide those services so that they have a better understanding of where the needs are. Do I hear a motion to approve the MOU?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Dr. Zimmerman, seconded by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? Hearing none, I am going to do this by voice vote. Paula, please.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Prowse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer? Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisero?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Paula. Next item is the COVID-19 pandemic 180-day school board resolution. Dr. Polinchak?
So the school code of 1949 states that students have to attend 180 days of school for in-person instruction and receive 900 hours of instruction at the elementary level, 990 at the secondary level. What this resolution does, and this is within the auspices of the PA code and the recommendation that we are receiving from the Department of Education, is that If we seek to have flexible instructional days, that meaning that any remote instruction that might occur count towards those required 180 days, 990 hours of instruction, the board would need to vote on this motion, effectively stating that they agree that the current situation is an emergency, as has been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization and other organizations. This gives us the latitude to be able to be flexible with what we deem as the school year and in what way that instruction would be provided.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please, Paula.
Mrs. Prowse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsinger Fisero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, and then we will circle back to the item that the board voted to include on tonight's agenda. It did come to us late in the day today, again, as things evolve. The item is the Lewisburg Area High School Marching Band Health and Safety Plan. Normally it is on the agenda. For those of you who are watching via Zoom and here in the audience tonight, normally all of our agenda items are presented to the public. However, because of some time sensitivity, this came to us a little bit late. So that's why we're voting to add the item. Dr. Polinchak, I'll turn it over to you.
So this plan is specific to the marching band, which also would begin the preseason practice that they would have before they're in full season. And much like we would, if we haven't already incorporated the newest of the new guidance that we've received, we would revise it as such and continue to present all of these plans to the board with all the subsequent revisions as guidance continues to change.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion?
I have a question, which I think I had the same question about the athletic plan. What determines when we move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3? Because on this document that we have, it identifies phase 3 as the week of band camp, but I'm curious how we can feel certain that by that week we'll be ready to move into phase 3.
I'm going to invite Ms. Reber to come up as she can speak to this.
So currently, with the athletic plan, and the marching band would fall under the same way. With athletics, it's been Mr. Faust and myself who make that determination. We have the screening sheet that's being used from the, when the students are doing their checks, they do that temperature and health check before each time. The coaches do the scan. And actually, even though it was a 1 week minimum and we should be well into phase 2 and 3, we also take a look at what's happening at a state level. We look at the CDC guidance, we look at any state guidance going forward. And then basically, I'm the person in consultation, of course, you know, with if we're going to move, would be letting Dr. Polinchak know that that's my recommendation. So as of now, even though, again, we would have hoped to have been able to move up more in our practices. We last week had said, nope, we have to stay at, you know, where we're at right now. So again, we would use a combination. We put general guidelines there as a hope, but then again, we recognize that we are going to need to be cognizant of any outbreaks, recommendations, you know, current mandates or guidelines that are given.
So just to clarify, thank you, that's helpful. But the indicating that that phase 3 would be band camp is the hope and the aspiration, but it may be the case that circumstances prevent that.
Exactly.
And just to clarify, this is, I said earlier, we were not voting on anything as far as reopening the schools or any plans for that. This is just for leading up to, up until the start of school and up until August 20th. So last meeting, we approved the athletic health and safety plan. This is the marching band. Again, just to clarify, this is not to reopen school. It's not continuing into the school year. This is just up until that time.
And actually, we've got it only going until August 10th. So, you know, anything that would happen after August 10th with those, because with the fall sports season, of course, that's when, you know, the time that they're ready to start heat acclimatization and things like that and full practices. So we purposefully made it only for the preseason because we knew it would be premature to try to go further. I also can say, kind of piggybacking off a question earlier, the PHAC Athletic Conference, which is made up of 19 schools from our IU and also north of us, some of the districts in IU 17. We have worked very closely together, so you will see a lot of similarities across plans. We continue to meet, we continue to look at things, so that there is very good communication happening across our conference.
Thank you, Paula. Any other discussion?
I would only ask that the same changes being made to the athletics policy would show up here with the explicit 6 feet of distancing.
All right, I will take a roll call vote on this. Paula?
Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Mr. Heath? Yes. Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mr. Rowe,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsinger Fisero,
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Browse.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, that concludes the board action items for this evening. We will move on to board information under new business. The first item is the summer 2021 student trip to Spain. Dr. Polinchuk?
And again, this is not an action item at this time. This is just presented to the board as information per policy. And if conditions permit, the chaperones here are proposing this trip to Spain to occur next summer, summer of 2021. And that is, of course, completely contingent on all of the conditions, but this is just coming forward as information as prescribed by policy.
All right, thank you. We did do the superintendent's report already. That will take us to the board liaison and committee reports. Are there any board members who have an update for any liaison or committees? Hearing none, I will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any board member would like to have removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the revised personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Clark. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Paula.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Mr. Heath, Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mr. Rowe,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsinger Fisero,
Yes.
Mrs. Browse,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Motion carried.
You skipped me, Paula. Yes.
All right. We will move on to any director's comments. Ms. Kim, I'll start with you all the way down there at the end.
Fabulous. I have none.
Dr. Zimmerman?
I would just like to welcome Dr. Pollenchak for her very first board meeting here in the Lewisburg Area School District. It's a delight to have you with us. I wish the circumstances were different and we could see each other's faces and be talking about different things, but I'm very glad to have you with us. And I also want to thank all the members of the public who came tonight in person and on Zoom. It's always nice when we feel that the community that we serve is here with us, so thank you.
Lisa?
I know most of the principals aren't with us here today, but I just wanted to also thank the entire administrative staff, including Mrs. Moser, for all of the prep work that they're attempting to get ready for the opening of school. I know how very difficult this is and the constant changing directives that we're getting from the governor's office. So I just want to give my appreciation for all the hard work and many hours that you're putting into this.
Mrs. Moser?
I'll echo Dr. Zimmerman's comments first made. It's been a delight. It's been a few weeks of really good and positive interactions with Dr. Pollenchak, and I look forward to continuing to work. Thank you.
Any board members joining Zoom? Any comments?
I'd like to ditto what everybody else has been said and welcome Dr. Pollenchak. It's nice to have you here, and I look forward to working with you. And to piggyback off of Lisa's comment, I'd also like to echo that my many thanks to the custodians. They are going to have a lot of extra work to do wiping everything down this coming school year. So I think we need to put our hats off to them also. Everybody have a good summer.
I'd just like to add, ditto all the comments and add, I just appreciate the fact that we're really looking at what's best for kids at this point. You know, there's a lot of noise going on in the public right now, but we got to remember that we serve the kids, and so we need to do what's best for kids. And I appreciate Dr. Pollenchak that you're going to do that for us and with us, and we're going to do the best that we can for our kids. Thanks.
Dr. Jablonski?
I was wondering if John was going to go. I want to echo what everyone said. Welcome, Dr. Pollenchak, and thank you to the administrators and everyone who's preparing for this coming year. This has been so much work. Behind the scenes, we're getting regular updates just to, as everyone has mentioned, it's constantly new guidance. So I'm also a parent in the district, as several of us are, and we absolutely empathize, all of us do, with how parents are feeling right now in the community. I also want to not forget the Green Dragon Foundation effort to make sure that we have the resources, the Lift Up Lewisburg effort. I think that was a really great way to show that our community can come together to support the teachers and what they need for a safe reopening in the fall. And I look forward to what that looks like. So welcome, and I do wish it was under different circumstances.
Mr. Heath? Dr. Pollenchak?
I just want to thank all the administrators, especially Mrs. Moser, just keeping everybody together to start thinking about what school reopening would look like. When I first joined the district, that was one of the first meetings that we had, was to talk about what some of the options are, what the survey data response said, what our capacity is, and our principals have been working, I would say, almost tirelessly at thinking of all the different things that we might need to consider, how we can make something work. And if they wouldn't have done that work ahead of time, we wouldn't be in a position to even consider reopening and what that looks like. I also want to say that we're all in a very difficult position, because we know that our teachers provide the best education for the students when they're in class, but we also want to make sure that our students are safe, parents are comfortable with what's happening in the school, and the staff, not just the teachers, but our custodians, our secretaries, all the adults that are in the buildings that help make sure that the students are learning and that they're getting their meals and that they have clean classrooms and clean hallways and clean restrooms and all of those things. So I can say that with the few people that I've met, because we're still in summer recess, that They've been very welcoming. They've been very open to sharing some of their thinking along with their concerns, and we will encourage them to do that, as I would encourage parents to also share what some of their concerns are. My email and direct line are posted on the website, and if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and I will get back to you. Thank you.
And then I'd also just like to echo welcoming Dr. Palanchak as her first meeting tonight. It's great to have you here. Again, I'd echo the sentiment. I wish it were slightly better circumstances, but we're glad to have you a part of our team here and helping to move the district forward. Again, on behalf of the board, we really do appreciate the feedback that we receive, the questions that we continue to get. We welcome those. We're asking for those. Again, not to be annoyingly repetitive, but I would be repetitive and say, please stay involved. Continue to monitor our board meetings. Again, we recognize some of the challenges. We're asking for patience as we work through some of these. Just even the Zoom capacity like we talked about. I know that there were people who did not get into the Zoom meeting that wanted to be part of this. We will continue to update. We will continue to post things onto as many just sites, our district website, even social media posts directing people to the district website to continue to keep people updated. So be patient with us. We're working very diligently. Kudos to all of the administrative team. They really are working around the clock. As I got off the phone last night around 10 o'clock with Dr. Palanchak. So they really are working around the clock on this. And we realize it is a very complex situation. Again, kudos to the Green Dragon Foundation. We always appreciate their support. And I think it does speak to the community involvement. The fundraiser that the Green Dragon Foundation did has exceeded and is continuing to meet their expectations and hopes of the goals that they're putting out there. I think people realize the value of public education, and that's why we're up here tonight. So we are working, and we ask for your partnership. We're asking for feedback. We're asking for the continued questions. So thank you for being in attendance. Thank you for those joining us on Zoom. And with that being said, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski, seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? Oh, Matt, did you have a question? Sure. There's always time for you, Matt.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Hi everybody. Good evening. Welcome, Dr. Palanchak, board. Thank you. I didn't catch, do we know about how many people were on the Zoom part of the meeting tonight? About?
We were limited by our license to 100 folks. We are working to expand that next time.
So you were at the limit this evening?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. The revision to the athletic health and safety plan, between the room acoustics and the masks and the mics, I didn't quite hear what happened and what was approved. Could you clarify just for the sake of my hearing it? Thank you.
So the athletic one is the one that we did last time. That tonight's was the marching band health and safety plan.
That too, yes, please.
I mean, we can get you a copy of that if you'd like.
Okay, is it on the board docs?
So that was an agenda item that we added tonight because of the tardiness of it coming to us. I can get you a copy of that. Okay. It is not on board docs though, but I can get you a copy.
Okay, if you could email one, that would be terrific.
Sure.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
And we will post it to the website, correct? Yes.
Correct. Yes, it will be posted. But
website.
if you log on right now, I don't believe it's on board docs right now because that came to us this afternoon. So, but we felt it was very important to add it to tonight to get it approved. That way we're following everything. Thanks, Matt. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any discussion for adjournment? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries, meeting adjourned.